Well, first of all, I wanted to thank you all for being here today. As March wraps up and National Women's History Month wraps up, I'm just really grateful that we can take the time to talk about, our experiences at Sporting Kansas City and just experiences of women in the sports industry in general. And something that I love to kick off our conversation is, why you love sports, why you want to be a part of this industry. I think it's amazing how many women we have within our organization, but something that I just love to hear about is to why they chose to be here and with Sporting today. Chioma, how about you start us off?
Yeah, so I love soccer, grew up playing soccer, wasn't able to play in college due to a knee injury, and so I was looking to get connected to the game, and I heard about an opportunity that in Tucson, Arizona, where they were asking for volunteers at my college at the University of Arizona to help out with MLS preseason. I said yes. And each year just kept asking for more responsibilities. I felt that was a perfect way for me to get connected to the game. For me, I believe that sports and music are the two platforms that, despite your background, your gender, your race, whatever socioeconomic level you're at, it speaks the same language, and you just get this large gathering of people just cheering for a common good. So I just wanted to be a part of that, and I love that I was able to find a professional career within the sport that I've loved so much. So yeah.
That's amazing. How about you, Becky?
So mine is a bit different in that I did not find sports. Sports found me. My background is within mental health, and a couple of the models that I use in my practice just pair very well with sports. Brene Brown being someone that I follow, her Man in the Arena is very much applicable to the athletes that I work with. But I, starting in mental health, my first introduction with athletes was working at Children's Mercy Sports Med Department. And I worked with athletes on their recovery process and just found how dedicated and how much they loved their sport and how hard they would work to get back to it. And so that dedication and that commitment just fit very well with the type of model that I worked with in mental health. So it kind of just grew from there. And then I met the partners at Sporting through Children's Mercy, and then over time decided that that would be a really good transition into working with Sporting full time. So it was one of those things where I had never really pictured that. It wasn't really part of my background as far as with sports. So it was something that kind of found me along the way.
That's such a good point. Some people decide that they want to start sports day one, born out of the crib, but some people, it just kind of finds them in later life and then it becomes a passion. Yeah. So that's really cool. How about you, Caitlin?
So I did start my career in sports and then I actually left. So it was one of those, I played sports growing up. I liked everything about sports. There's obviously so many transferable skills when you're playing sports. Felt like that's where I was going to be. And then I actually left and did global marketing for a couple companies, couple agencies. Then all stars aligned and I was actually able to come back into sports, which has been fun to kind of have that previous experience and then kind of leverage that to what we're able to do here and be very collaborative with partners, other brands, things like that, utilizing our brand as well. So I feel like it's been funny how now looking back over my career, how it's all made sense in the winding road that gets you here. Sports is such a community. When you're winning, the highs are so high and we're all just vibing and all leaning in and celebrating together. So I think that's also something that's drawn me to sports, is everybody's really rallying around everybody and the sport in general.
Well, mine is like straight out of the crib. That's I am from Mexico, and to pull in Ted Lasso, like football is life out there. Everyone loves soccer. They play soccer. They're involved in it somehow. And my dad was very like, I need one of my daughters to love soccer. So that was me. And he kind of wrote me in and everything. I credit him 100% for my love of soccer. But when I graduated college, I had the opportunity to be a game day associate with the LA Galaxy. And I realized I was like, oh, this can be a career, not just a passion that I have on the side. And from being a game day associate to then moving to another team, and then Sporting had the opportunity to open up an entirely Spanish website, which is one of my passion projects. I think, like Chioma said, it's a global sport. It's the one thing that no matter what the language is, you can connect to. So the opportunity to launch a website that would connect Sporting to more people, I was like, I have to be there.
I bet your family just has to love you. I know, like, even with my family starting in sports, they're like, so when can I come to a game, I love how all four of us had very different, backgrounds and how we started here. Right now, I don't want to call it the elephant in the room, but this is definitely, stereotyped as a man's industry. And I just want to hear a little bit about the challenges you had. Has there ever been times where you walked in the room and thought, wow, like I'm the only woman here? And in those moments, how did you choose to, move forward, or did it hold you back in those aspects?
When I first started off, I would say that was something that I always noticed. I was aware that I was often the only woman of color. But I would say over the years, again, now going into my 14th year, it's changed a lot. I think for me, the biggest part that was just glaring is just trying to find people that you can, find community with, who can be your allies, who can speak your name in rooms when you're not there. And so that was something that I knew I had to learn right away. There's studies that show that the more diversity of thought you have in a room, the more successful an organization will be. So I tried not to focus too much on that being the reality, and knowing that there's a place for me here, I'm supposed to be here because I will improve the spaces that I occupy. So.
And you definitely will. And I think that's the fact of there's space for everybody, and the fact that it is, and I work more on the business side of sports. So obviously there's a lot of males, but we are bringing more females to the table. And so I've been in a lot of situations where I am the only female, but I feel very empowered in that position because there's a lot of people that would love to be in the room there where I have this seat. And also just advocating for people that are also able to then hopefully join us in the future and kind of just making space for it. It starts with a few steps to get that in that direction. So I think it's very exciting, the fact that there's more females in sports. There's obviously more room to grow.
I can tell it almost like lights a fire under you when you're like the only woman in a situation. And I think that's a really cool perspective to have on it. Instead of, oh, I'm the only woman. Instead, yeah, I'm about to change everyone in here's opinion and mindset and make them think of all the things they're not thinking of. So I think that's such a cool perspective to have.
There's so much value in us being there, and obviously them providing value as well, but just seeing how we can all interact together, do better business together, be successful together. There's a lot of that synergy that can happen when we're all in the room.
I don't know, I think this club does a really good job of hiring people who are qualified, and that includes a lot of qualified women. So I've found a community here with people who aren't even in my department, where I can cross the office and go chit chat with Caitlin or go chit chat with, anyone, and know that they have my back. I think early in my career, imposter syndrome was definitely like something that took over me, where I was like, well, I'm not like the best writer and I'm not the most knowledgeable in soccer. I'm really a fan, but it was having other women supporting me and being mentors for me that helped me a lot, even if they weren't in my department exactly. My perspective from my background and my culture, and even just the way I view soccer, can bring something to the table. And it was more so of like, you know what, no, I'm gonna prove them wrong. I'm gonna make them like these articles that I'm writing. I'm gonna show them like, maybe you didn't see this side of this player because you don't interact with them in the same way. But I also think it's like just the community we've built with the women's group that we have, that Marika, you actually spearhead, and we go grab coffee or we decorate cookies together. It's just being intentional of like, hey, we are all spread across different departments. We may not interact every day, but let's get together once in a while, have a moment to talk and just discuss our days and connect as women in this network.
Yeah, touching on our resource group, Women of SKC, it's really great because yes, it's so much professional help. We've had women across the office talk about different, speakers and conferences they want to attend, and it's always been supported by the club for that woman to, take that time, cover those expenses to be able to professionally develop. But so much more than that. It's really a community of friendships as well. It's having those after work hours, we go through long match days. We're not leaving the stadium until pretty late, but we're walking each other to our cars. We're talking about things outside of your 9 to 5, because you can work your whole life, but it's great that we can enjoy it too with the people we're surrounded by. How about you, Becky? I know you work with some of these players and staff, directly. I bet there's not much overlap between genders in those situations.
Right. I mean, I am considered part of the technical team, and I will say there's just a handful of us there. I think my position's a bit unique in that I was the first person stepping into it. There had not been a mental performance coach prior to me stepping into that position. So I think that actually helped in a lot of ways, because we were all kind of feeling out like, what is this gonna look like and how does this go? And They really truly felt like I was the expert in the room about these situations. You know, walking into the room, I felt the level of trust in what I was doing, and I think that helped me just feel more and more at home in that space.
Yeah, and there's a reason that you're there. And I think that
Right.
where it is, you're walking in and you're like, oh my gosh, am I the only one here? And it's like, wait, I'm actually here for a reason.
Right.
And they chose me
right.
to be here. And I think that is just setting the standard moving forward, hopefully. So
Yeah,
take that,
for
own
sure.
that, empowered with that.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Absolutely. You hit that on the nail. I think, you know, most women typically think, you know, why am I here? Where men typically go, yeah, I'm here, I'm going to do it. I think the more steps we can empower each other and help support each other just to get rid of that block of uncertainty just changes the experiences for everyone. Another thing you mentioned was, you know, the people that you look up to and inspire. That's a question I wanted to ask you guys, you know, has there been any strong women in your life that helped you get here today? Or even women that you may not know personally that you just look up to even on TV or in media, etc.?
In Tucson, Kate was one of my mentors, and she really just brought me alongside a lot of what she was doing in a day-to-day. She didn't make me feel like the questions I asked were stupid. She empowered me, she spoke my name in rooms, and so I was really fortunate enough to have that experience early on. And then as I got older, she wasn't there anymore, but I still kept in touch with her and found other mentors along the way where that experience taught me that I can be vulnerable with other people, and that if you think you're the only person going through that, I bet you there's somebody else who's gone through that can give you some advice. So I would say Kate was one of my very first mentors. And then just even coming to Kansas City, I moved here in 2018, didn't know a lot of people, but the Kansas City community is just very collaborative and very excited just to, if you put yourself out there that, hey, I need help, or hey, this is what I'm going through, there's always somebody out there to help. But I would say Kate was one of my first female mentors that really empowered me.
It sounds like she put, you know, your name in rooms that you weren't, and now you're putting her name
Yes,
in a room that
yes.
she's not. That's so sweet. And you know, we always got that Midwest nice in Kansas
Yes.
City. So those are two great things to go off of. I'll switch over here. How about you, Sam?
I've been very fortunate that all my bosses have been women. So I will, that's a flex that I will say. From my first game day associate job at Galaxy, Vicky welcomed me. And even to this day, whenever we play San Diego or we play whatever team she's working at, we make it a point to connect and say hello. And she was just the first person who kind of welcomed me into sports. I would say the person that I really want to give a shout out to is my old boss at Atlanta, Sandy. She is an incredible writer. So she wasn't just a mentor in the sports scene, it was also pushing me to become a better writer, pushing me to do more research, and just being that support when I was, you know, having hard days. And sometimes you just need to talk it out with someone. And in those moments where we just chat it and we're just two girls talking and airing out our frustrations, those were the moments where I was like, that's what a good leader is, that's what a good manager is. And I was so inspired by her outside of the sports world, just as a person.
And probably celebrating a lot of successes together too, which is really fun to just see how they interact in real time, especially as your mentor, manager, things like that, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's good to have the balance between someone who's there for you on those rough days, low moments, but also having the person who, hey, saw this on LinkedIn, you're killing it. I mean, I see those comments every day and they get you through even the moments that you are struggling. How about you, Becky?
I feel like I've been surrounded by strong women, you know, from jump, from my, you know, own family and my mother on up. But as far as career-wise, it would probably be my field instructor when I was in grad school. Her name was Kim. Coming into a helping field, a lot of times, you know, you find people who are very, very compassionate, not always a great deal of boundaries, not always a great deal of speaking for self. You know, Kim was really the first person to say, like, oh no, Becky. You set this, you can do all of that with compassion, you can do all of that with grace, but you absolutely find your space in wherever you go. And so just seeing someone operate on that level was very eye-opening. I was just fresh out of grad school and, you know, just getting into the world. And so I did need someone to really show me that, because if not, you just tend to give. And then, you know, the burnout rate can be really, really high. I've been in the field for a very long time, and I think that's probably applying the lessons that Kim taught me about setting my own boundaries and self-care and knowing what I can and cannot do. and what I'm responsible for and not responsible for. So that was a great mentor for me.
Absolutely. How about you, Caitlin?
Likewise with Becky, where I feel like having just my family, my mother, my grandmother, everyone is strong females. So I think even just having that established from the jump and then being around a lot of strong mentors and bosses, I also kind of fortunately had a lot of female leaders in a lot of my positions. So just seeing them live in action and how they carried themselves and also the roles that they played was really just something to look up to, seeing how they navigated the world and conversations and just kind of carried the room and things like that.
I got to shout out my own, really quick before we move on. I really got a lot of my strength, kind of as you both mentioned, like from my family and especially my mother. Similar to your story, Sam, but instead of my father showing sports, it was really my mom. Yes, my dad, he's still watching football every Sunday. But it was my mom who created such a welcoming atmosphere whenever it came to sports. And it's what made me fall in love with it because yes, the product on the field is amazing. And yes, you cheer for the highs and the lows, but it's really the people around you who make the environment worth it. Whenever I was nervous about stepping into this industry, being so male predominant, she said, you've been watching it every day. You can yap to a wall. Like, this is your strength, You can take the mic. Exactly. Something as, a young professional that I'd love to ask you guys, what's your advice for the future generation? What's your advice for the little girls who may be watching this video and think they want to be here? Or the people our age who may want to make that jump, however, to become a fan in their lives, or even the older, women who are just watching this for fun and want to hear about what's going on and what goes well to apply to their own lives.
I'll say two things is I think one of the big things is to continue to challenge yourself and celebrate those wins. Even just think of it outside of the work setting. I think a lot of times because sports, it bleeds into the weekends. It sometimes is after the 5 o'clock hours. And so it's easy to associate our jobs as our identity. So also just thinking of what are those successes you have outside of your job is important. So build confidence outside of your job, but also celebrate those wins. I think that's hard for women specifically. And the second thing is just finding community, because you can encourage and self-talk yourself as much as you can, but there's power when you have other people around you that see the goodness in you, that sees the confidence in you, that can talk you up. And so try not to do your work in silos. It's important to find community at work, outside of your job.
I love it all so much, from, finding those communities, having those wins outside of work, both in and out of the office, and celebrating them, not just, oh, hey, I did this, let's move on. Yeah. Really taking in the moment every day. Life goes by so fast. Like, let's celebrate those little wins we have with each other.
For young professionals, my biggest advice is to trust in yourself and trust the knowledge that you have. We are the subject matter experts in our field for a reason. Like, I could not do what Chioma does in the community impact space. I could not do what you do or what Becky does. I can only do what I do, and trusting that I have that knowledge and that I'm able to share it with people so that they can learn something as well. There's a lot of self-doubt and there's a lot of self-talk of being like, well, I'm not the best at this, or it's just trusting that you have your abilities and you have a unique perspective that no one else can bring but yourself.
Yes.
No, I was just going to say too, for a younger audience that is looking to, when they're saying, oh, sports is male dominated, they're obviously seeing females here that are speaking on their behalf. But I think even too, just not seeing it as a challenge, but more so of an exciting push to go get more. So I hope that they're empowered by seeing this. They're excited about the future and where we're going. I think there's a lot of really cool things that we can all do together and successes that we can have.
Well, and it's interesting that conversation, because I have a daughter who is turning 18 today. Yeah, exciting. So we have these conversations as she's moving into her adulthood and going to college next year in the fall to figure out what she wants to do. And my advice, to her and really to any young person is, find something and do that well. Like, learn your craft very, very well. Being really, really good at your craft is a great way for opportunities, and then take them. When opportunities open up, take them. Because I know a lot of people, again, kind of that hesitate of, oh, this is really safe and I'm not sure if I want to leave this. But, if there's an opportunity that you're challenged, that you are doing something that you can build upon and start something new, get really good at what you're doing and then take those opportunities.
For sure. And you might not know what those are too, whenever you're 18 and you're like, what is this
Right.
going to look like? And then now looking back on the years that I've had in my career, I'm like, it actually made sense.
Yeah.
But you don't know
Yes.
until you say yes to the opportunities and you're like, okay, that sent me then here, that then made sense. But at the time you're like, I have no idea where this is going.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
just trusting that and being open to it.
And just to tag along onto like both of your guys' points, like never to be so hard on yourself. I feel like there's such a pressure from a young age to know exactly what you're doing and to be the best of the best at it. You still can be those things, but you know, we got a lot of time. You know, you have a lot of time to fall and get picked back up and to find your community and your support system. And I also would like encourage, ask for help. You know, I don't think you guys have ever turned down someone asking for help or to even shadow or advice, especially a woman in those standpoints. But it can be so intimidating to ask those people, especially when you see, you know, really successful women. Instead of being intimidated by it, look at it as like a good resource and inspiration to, wow, if she did it, that means I can do it too kind of mentality.
I love what you said about it not being linear, because for a lot of people, you start off in one career and end up in another. I didn't start in sports until I was 25, 26 years old. You know, if you would have told me straight out of college that I would be doing this, I'd be like, absolutely not. I'm a legal assistant. I'm staying in this. But then to like fast forward to where I am now, I'm 31, and I'm like, I can't imagine a life outside of this. Like, this is so weird. So your process is never going to be linear, and you could have an interest now, and down the line it could change and morph into something else.
Totally.
When I was entering the sports world as an intern, I had no idea about all the job opportunities within sports. It's like we have people in marketing, we have people in communications, we have people in accounting, we have people on our legal team. There's so much diversity in just the opportunities within sports. So I would also encourage young women too, that if you are interested in working in sports, to just be open to the different jobs. And initially when I said yes to this position, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to. So I think it's also important to understand what you don't like or maybe what, you know, some other things that you want to experiment with. So yeah, I'm blown away by how many job opportunities are in the sports industry now.
That's a great call out. Yeah. And I did not play soccer, so I wouldn't have thought that I would ever be here. But now that there's an opportunity for partnerships and marketing and revenue sales and all of that, that it's like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
I totally agree. You never want to see me on a field, you know. But behind the screen, behind the field, I'm with you on that.
I played other sports, just not soccer, so I did not know that this was
But we
going to
love
all
to
line
watch
up.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I wanted to thank you all again for being here today. I had so much fun getting to know, you know, your stories, your background better. I feel motivated and inspired right now. I know everyone at home is too. And yeah, thanks again to Sporting Kansas City that brought us all here together today and to do what we do.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.